So with a week and a half still to go for this one, and having lost one fight already, I'm still going to take a risk and do an early breakdown and compromise by basically doing an updated breakdown closer to the card next week when the inevitable changes come. We all know that Kelvin's fat ass isn't going to make it. Let's call this an appetizer before UFC 296. One that could have been a low-level main course had Hooker not let the boys down again and backed out. City Kickboxing really can't stop taking L's lately, and I love it. I hate pretty much everyone at that rotten cesspool of a gym. There are some value plays here and a few that I'm going to be blatantly avoiding. Let's cover each and every one and keep this filthy win streak on the tracks. Alright, nice little flyweight fight here to kick the card off between Beauty and the Beast. Beauty might be capping a little bit. Hardy's decent. She looked good against Juliana Miller, who, let's be completely fair, absolutely sucks. She is operating out of some well-established gyms, has her husband in her corner, who, despite being a rat-faced weasel, is a decent tactician when he talks a good game anyway. Spending time at Team Renegade won't have hurt her development either. Jamie Lynn Horth is coming off a win against Hayley Cohen, who, let's be fair again, is a bag of moldy diarrhea. I do think that Horth has the power and size advantage here, and is likely to have the dominant moments that secure at least 2 of the rounds with grappling and wet blanketing. Both women are tough, so if you like money, take this to go the over on the 2.5. It's too close to call an outright winner for me. If I'm being kind, this is a potentially intriguing matchup, but if I'm being real and honest, nobody cares about this at all. The odds on this one bother me as well. I do think that Turman should win this, but the odds should be a little bit closer. I do expect this to be a very scrappy back and forth. Turman for me though has the chin and has the option to land takedowns and subs. He does train with Glover and Pereira, so you know he's getting the work in. On the other side, Gooden is athletic and looks like he should be good, but he kind of just isn't. And I don't think he's going to have the power to dust Turman's chin. He also tends to gas hard as the fight goes on, especially compared to Turman, who can usually maintain a pace. I think it's going to be a close first round. Turman's going to start to pull ahead in the second, and then he's going to win the third dominantly. Going over the 2.5 again is probably better odds-wise, but I think Turman's going to just about edge it. Alright, I think Rodolfo Bollato is going to violate Ihor Potieria. Ihor is not terrible standing, but his record is very deceiving. Before the UFC, he was basically beating up cab drivers and delivery boys in a third-rate organization. This kind of feels a little bit like a punishment, though, for Ihor pissing on Shogun's grave. The revenge tour kind of started with Carlos Ulberg and will end here with this thick Brazilian. Bollato is very aggressive and strong, and even if Ihor does clock him, which is not impossible at all, Ihor does have decent hands. Bollato can just pick him up and dunk him, where he's going to be able to apply a way more accomplished ground game. Ihor is horrendous on the ground. UFC moving dirty again on this one, I feel. After using him to assassinate Shogun and get rid of his massive contract, they're sending an assassin in to basically kill the assassin. Bollato to get this done in the distance is pretty nice here. I reckon by ground and pound or sub. Yeah, this again is a pretty nice fight, but I really like Costa to bag the win. He does have a height and reach disadvantage, but carries a more varied striking standing threat. Steve Garcia is quite prone at times to favour a wide stance, where he leans very heavily on his lead leg. And I think that that's going to leave him in the danger at kickboxing range, where Costa does his best work. I can see Costa using the range early on, battering Garcia's lead leg, taking some of his power and stability away, then landing a variety of awkward strikes as Garcia gets frustrated and slows down a little bit. Garcia's only been finished once in his career, so it's not like he's got the dustiest chin out there. So this one going the distance would not really surprise me. I just expect Costa to be more active and to have the moments to score with the judges. Or should. Who the fuck knows these days. He's also tough as nails, so if it does descend into a firefight, I think he's going to have more heart. Oh yeah, this one's happening as well. Maybe this card isn't as good as I thought it was. This is a typical striker versus grappler matchup. If this bout was happening like a year ago, I'd be taking Drakkar hands down, but if me auntie fingered me butthole, she'd be me uncle. So it really does come down to, will Drakkar find the chin, or will Solecki land his takedowns? Drakkar hasn't fought in like a year and a half, which does concern me. I feel like his best chance is to pretty much catch Solecki on the chin. Solecki lost to Jared Gordon, which is not a great look either. It feels like a pick'em. Despite losing to the former smackhead, I'm going to side with Solecki though. Minimum confidence here. While he's only fought twice in the last year and a half in the cage, that's more than Jakar has. And he's also been pretty active on the grappling and BJJ regional scene, including getting an impressive sub win against Donald Cerrone. He's younger, he's been more active, so I think if he can avoid getting chinned in the first round, I can see him taking the next two, or maybe even landing a sub late on. Alright, I've been waiting for Cody No Heart Brundage to get what he deserves ever since this gutless fucking coward ruined the last leg of my biggest paying parlay this year, taking a dive against Jacob Malkoon after an illegal lead that barely landed. Aljo would have been proud. He is a total pussy, and I can't wait to see him get annihilated. So, assuming he doesn't find an excuse to not turn up, his brutal end should be assured, and I'm going to have the tissue and lotion ready specifically for his UFC funeral. Yeah, I roll like that. Brundage has no chance against Reece on the feet, who at 29 is a little bit late arriving on the scene now, but is a very good rangy striker with excellent takedown defense. I think Reece is going to batter the cunt and get him out of there in the first round. I'm more than comfortable as well with him torturing this quarter man for 3 rounds as well, so if he's up for doing that, I'm all for it. This will be Brundage's last fight in the UFC. Tonight I get my fucking revenge. God, I hate this prick. Alright, speaking of lotion and tissue, we have Miesha Tate back again for another one. As the betting underdog against Julia Avila. Now, I've watched every UFC card for about a decade, and I genuinely can't remember this twat. I rewatched her fight with Eubanks, who completely outgrappled her, and then watched her bounce back win against Stolyarenko, who I'm going to love forever for ridding the world of Molly McCann. So that's fine. Injuries have plagued her career though, so picking her as a favourite against Tate is a very risky proposition. Again, I'm going to play it safe here, and I'm going to go for this to go over 2.5. I think Avila will be slightly more accurate, but she won't have enough to finish Miesha standing, and I think Miesha will have the better wrestling, but won't have enough to sub her. If you bet on either girl, you leave what I expect will be a very close fight in the judges' hands, and we know how that tends to go. I'm going to side with Tate as the dog on the sly. However, I'm not going to be betting that way. The over 2.5 is far better. Yeah, Silva's had a very, very strange UFC career. He had a hell of a war with Arman Tsarukyan, who went in as a 9-1 favourite and almost slept his ass. But then he looked like a total scrub against Glenn and Hakparast, who absolutely battered him. MMA makes no fucking sense. Guida is old as fuck, but it's so damn hard to get out of there. So betting on Silva as a huge minus 238 favourite is just a terrible idea in my opinion. My gut on this one is that Silva catches Guida in the first round and hurts him, but does not get the finish, and then we get a scrappy back and forth for the last 2 rounds, with Guida potentially getting the nod by fighting through adversity and making this dog ugly. Again, my official pick is this for land on the over, but I do have a strange feeling that Guida gets a split decision win. Best way to get Guida out is to sub him, and Silva has proven he has the chops by subbing Magni of all people in a grappling contest, but this is MMA, and with Guida leg kicking and being elusive, I think this stays on the feet and gets scrappy as hell, which is exactly what Guida's going to want. Alright, I like Khalil Rountree a lot, but I'm going to pick Azamat. They have a common recent opponent in Jacoby. Rountree managed to get a robbery against him, whereas Azamat smashed him up and hurt him for 3 rounds. Murzakanov looks like a midget for this weight class, which I think actually really helps him to confuse opponents with his surprisingly long reach. He used this to great effect against Jacoby, who seemed really surprised and unable to adjust, and Jacoby simply looked better on the feet than Rountree. Murzakanov, as we can see in the stats, is the more active and accurate striker. However, what seals this for me is his ability to go for takedowns if the stand-up is not going his way, which Rountree will be susceptible of in the later stages of the fight as his gas tank starts to sap. It's a dangerous fight, Khalil could catch him, but I like Azamat to navigate the first 3 minutes and then just ground Khalil out. Yeah, I'm going to take Soriano in this one. He packs massive power, and despite a few losses on his record recently, where he got wet blanketed by Maximov, alright, in hindsight it's not a great loss, but the losses to Kopolov, who he went toe-to-toe with and lost in a 50-50 shootout, and the decision with Allen now look like highly acceptable losses, and he did make a decent account of himself in both fights. Stoltzfus, on the other hand, got flatlined by Abbas in like 15 seconds, and that guy has been majorly fraud-checked. He's lost 4 in 5, so it leaves you wondering who he kneeled for to still be in the UFC at this point. Stoltzfus is actually not terrible, but Puna has good takedown defense in the early part of fights. He goes to take heads off, but not by being overly wild. He's decently accurate, so I feel more comfortable backing the guy who's willing to go for it every time. I think Puna at -265 is a decent play. Right, I'm gonna just say it. Kelvin is a fat bantamweight and the actual opposite of a weight bully, but despite my reservations on hearing he was cutting down again, he looks significantly slimmed down from what I've seen on his IG, and I think he's made a genuine effort to try and make one more run in his career. Kelvin has one of the most solid chins in the game, and despite having a pretty horrible takedown defense at 60%, he has been fucking with dudes for a while that are naturally way bigger, so I think he's going to do a bit better here. I was high on Brady for a while, and then he got in there with Bollato and got totally outworked and battered standing by Bilal. Bilal did that. Bilal made him quit. Now, if Kelvin does get taken down, he can resemble a tortoise flipped on its shell. However, I think he's going to be able to get up against Brady, and if he gets a significant amount of time on the feet with this guy, I think he's going to break him. As the underdog, I have to take Kelvin. Alright, I really love both these dudes, genuinely, but I'm going to go with Rob Font. Figgy is in a weird situation where he's too drained to fight at flyweight, but a little bit too small to fight at bantamweight. I think Figgy is incredibly skilled, and despite how much I love Font, he's not going to be in contention for the belt again, so it would be a lot better for the division if Davidson goes in there and fucking mollywhops him. I just believe that Font's pressure boxing style and size is going to be something that Figgy has never had to deal with in a competitive situation, and at 35 it's going to be very difficult to adjust to a completely new situation. Font is really good, and I think he could potentially catch Davidson and get him out of there. He tends to put the gas down when he's in a free rounder, and I believe he's going to put massive pressure on Figgy and break him down. I'm going to go with a late finish or a clear decision win for Font. I do hope I'm wrong though. Alright, Hooker single-handedly made this card a solid B to a high C. What an absolute mong. All that We Fight Injured talk has come back to smack the most insufferable team on the planet this year. What a shocker. I'm going to post an update to this when Green gets another opponent. Fortunately, there is a little time to find a replacement. Dos Anjos has thrown his name in. Crack Gordon is pushing for a rematch. Less of that. And even worse, Terrence McKinney has put in his name in too. I fucking hope that does not happen. He's rubbish. I'll keep you posted on my pick whatever happens. I'm not going to go into too much into why now, but I did have Hooker winning this one. Alright, main event of the evening, and fuck me, this is hard. I can make an equally strong case for both men. The stupidest pick I made this year was stabbing Olives in the back to pick Benil, and we all saw what happened there. He got absolutely molested. On the other hand, he completely dominated Gamrot, who got a close, if not controversially, narrow win against the very man he stands across from. On the other hand, while Tsarukyan is fantastic, he has a really strange habit of either fighting down or up to match the level of his opponent, if that makes any sense. Silva had him in serious trouble, and he's nothing special. He had close losses to Makhachev and Gamrot. The latter I thought he edged. The win against Ismagulov, Frivola and Alvarez now look less shiny as well. I was going to pick Benil when I started this video out. However, Tsarukyan has only been finished once, and that was in the second fight of his career, whereas Benil has been fucking chinned 4 brutal times. Benil, in my opinion, is actually way better value at plus 220, but I'm going to side with Tsarukyan. The division needs him to win, but frankly, I am staying the fuck away from this one. Alright, so this is the weekend picks roundup. As usual, the reds are the ones I'm not too confident about. Yellows, I'm kind of at a mid-range level of confidence, and the greens I think are going to cash pretty well.